Hello and welcome to the Property Unleashed podcast with me, Mark Fitzgerald. It's fantastic to have you joining me here today. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, then welcome. And if you are a repeat listener, welcome back. It's great to have you. So today I have a guest, another special guest. John from Monument Financial Group has joined me today, and we are going to talk about all things finance and a bit about John himself and why his services and the business that he does in the property world is something you really want to have a little look at. And John and his father, Steve, as well, are fantastic people to connect with and to talk about financial operations and potentially projects that you might have come in the property world. So John is a 50% partner with his father, Steve, and their company. They offer unparalleled choices of funding sources, including specialist fundings and specialist funders who operate exclusively within a niche market. So it's going to be really interesting to go through some of those. Their size of their company means that their market presence and relationships forged with funders means that they can bring you really good, attractive and competitive rates in the commercial finance market. So welcome to the show, John. It's great to have you on.
Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate the opportunity to come along. Didn't know I was interested enough to be part of a podcast, so it's quite weird to be on this side of the camera. So
good stuff. Well, I've met John because I am the host of the Great North Pit, which is a networking event that we have on each month. And John and his father, Steve, come on and are our financial and mortgage experts for that. So we've had a good connection. We've known each other a few years now. So it's my privilege and honor to have you come and join me here. But really what I don't know about you, John, is sort of where you started from, what got you into the sector that you're in, and how it's all sort of come about for you. So can you share that with us a bit?
Yeah, sure. So cast back to being at sixth form, learning to drive. My birthday is end of August, so I'm 31st of August, so I'm the last in my school year to turn 17. But my first word was car, hand on heart, and I'm still car mad now. So all I wanted to do as soon as I passed my test, as soon as I hit 17, was pass my test. So I was lucky enough where my parents got me a car to learn in, and then the pressure was really on because now it's on the drive. And, you're looking at it every day. Now, my mum and dad have got quite a long drive, so I'll reverse it up and down it, much to my mum's real irritation, because if I hit something, the car would disappear. So all I wanted to do was learn to drive. Was quite clear that when I passed my test, I was going to need a form of income. I had some money in the bank, but that wouldn't last forever kind of thing. So got a part-time job. My friend worked at B&Q in Durham. I got a part-time job there. I had to go through the recruitment process, but on the back of him saying, it's all right, 17-year-old lads, I mean, you just want to be paid and do what you think's a day's work, don't you? So got a job there. Actually really, really enjoyed it. And I knew when I was at sixth form, I didn't want to go to uni. I didn't enjoy formal education in any way, really. Never valued bits of paper. Still to this day, I'm terrible for thinking, that bit of paper is not going to stop me doing what I want to do. So I kind of nestled really well into the world of work. Discovered there was opportunities within the business to progress forward through internal development programs. Was working in a sales environment, selling kitchens and bathrooms for them. So we got a bit of commission. Was working kind of 30, 35 hours a week. I had no bills to pay for. I had like a mobile phone for 20 quid. So it was brilliant, and then got onto the internal development program, became a trading manager for them. So running departments, went all the way up to Ashington to run my first sales department, which is about 25, 26 miles from where my parents live. So I was traveling miles, but met and worked with a really good team. A gentleman was my boss who I'm still close mates with now. Really had a good introduction to being managed, if that makes sense, which helped me bed in even further and progress my career, taking bigger jobs, taking different stores, different challenges. And then I probably got to maybe 26, 27, and I started turning down jobs and promotions and moves. I didn't know why, but I had my own house. I was quite happy where I was geographically in the region. So my region would go all the way up to Ashington up in Northumberland, about 20 miles up, and then down into Teesside / North Yorkshire. So you could maybe go 25, 30 miles south. So quite a commute sometimes. Yeah, it's on the motorway, but you get one person broken down on the motorway and the queues are like 4 miles long. It really starts your day off on a bad foot. And I was kind of learning that I like my days to start off on a nice footing. I'm a much better person, much better manager, much more effective if I get my own way in that sense. So yeah, started turning down jobs, just sat still for a while, being by my own admission really good at what I was doing, but treading water. Frustrating a lot of people, frustrating a lot of my bosses and regional managers and all that sort of stuff. People coming and saying, look, this job's come up. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to know. And it kind of dawned on me after a couple of years of just treading water that actually the reason I was doing that is because I knew my long-term future wasn't in retail management. It took me that couple of years to suss it out. There was something obviously subconsciously telling me, don't just sit tight because you don't want it. At the grand old age of like 26, 27, 28. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. Hadn't a clue. And at the time, my dad was a commercial broker and had been for a few years. So he'd done about 30 years with Santander prior to that as a divisional manager, divisional director. So enormous role, took his redundancy, which is kind of what you hope for, I suppose, in an employed role. You hope to get a golden handshake and a payoff, don't you, after you've done all your service, you've got your pension, you've had all the perks and the money, and then they say, right, there's some money, bugger off, So, but he knew he wasn't quite right for retiring, so he did a load of exams himself, went and set up as a commercial broker with a couple of guys that he used to work for him at Santander, actually. And he was doing that. And I took a bit of an interest in it. Didn't know anything about it, though. Never worked in a bank, no formal training. It's all absolutely alien to you, We explored a little bit in terms of how can I get into that. And the finance network that he was with is a very good commercial finance network, but they don't take starters in the industry. You need to have experience, and generally that comes from being in an employed role, usually with a bank, working in the commercial lending space with SMEs, or as an employed broker within another business, So it was kind of like hit a brick wall a little bit. So back to the drawing board, sat on it for another period of time. And then I rang my dad one afternoon, was like, I'm going to do CMA. I'm going to do my mortgage broker exams. And he's like, all right, no problem. I was due my year-end bonus at work. So I thought, well, this is going to cost me nothing because it's money I never had, if that made sense. Totaled it all up. It was a couple of grand because I had to go to Manchester for a couple of weeks to do I know how I learn. So we did a lot of that stuff within Kingfisher B&Q, understanding how I learn, how my team learns, how I can get the best out of my team and myself by making sure I'm put myself in the best position to take things on, and I knew I needed somebody in front of me in a classroom environment, talking, going through something where I can ask questions immediately. Distance learning wasn't for me. Reading books on my own wasn't for me because I'd make my own kind of premeditated idea of what the answer should be and then try telling me different. No, I've decided that's what it is. I need somebody who just goes, no, this is it. Trust me. So sorted all that out. It was going to cost me a couple of grand. Went and did it. I did it in 2 bits. You do CMAP 1, and then which you only need 1 to actually work in the industry. If you have somebody else who's got 2 and 3, they can oversee you. But I was like, no, I need to do all 3. You don't just want a bit of the process, do you? You want the full license. So I did 1 in the 2 weeks between going away to sit 1 and then sitting 2 and 3. I passed 1's exam and I sat down with some people that my dad knew down in Wynyard Park in Teesside, who had a IFA business with St James's Place and a kind of tagged on mortgage business. And they said, yeah, we'll take you on a self-employed basis to get you what's called CAST status, competent advisor status within the industry. So basically babysat for your first, good set of advice, maybe up to 10 mortgages, 10 lots of insurance, go through the process. So you're not out there causing absolute havoc, So yeah, managed to get that secured, went away and did 2 and 3, passed that exam straight away as well. And I was like, actually quite like exams now. Whereas previously I was always just like, whatever. I really wanted these. So And then that was it. I had my notice in. My boss was like, "Oh, you're actually leaving," and it all came together really, really quick. I was like, "Yeah, I wasn't joking when I said I was going to exit the business and do something different." So stepped down from my role, went part time as a kind of base level employee within B&Q for a couple of months to kind of overlap the cash flow, I suppose. Just went into a self-employed role and began learning from there. And that's, what is that, September 2019? So a lot's happened, but actually not that long ago. And obviously not long after that, we started pinning the January, and then in the March we had COVID. So been really kind of like, whoa, journey into the industry. I just had to kind of battle through that and realize that actually what I was experiencing in COVID in the early days was a really strange version of actually the industry that I now operate in. Things have come, right back to life in the last maybe 14, 15 months. And that's a true picture, I suppose, of the industry that I ultimately wanted to work in, not the crazy COVID times where, you couldn't do much. So, yeah, bit of a winding path, I suppose.
Well, you got sort of a full circle, which I love. I love people's journey. I love to hear about how people have got to where they've got to at the end of the day. And I mean, my one question to you would be: is you put all this effort in, you went and did the qualifications. Has it all been worth it? I mean, you might say yes, just because you're programmed to say yes, but are you genuinely now in a happier life, a happier state in doing what you're doing?
So a lot of my time in my 20s, because I worked in retail, I was absent because the hours were just crackers, not long hours, just unsociable ones. You might finish at 9 o'clock at night. You might be home at 20 to 10. By the time you've had a shower, a sit down, something to eat, switched off, it's past 11, 12 o'clock, but you're back there the next day. You work a lot of the bank holidays, you work a lot of, just a guarantee if the sun was shining, I was at work. And then I'd have a couple of days off during the weekend, and like it is today, it'd be bloody raining. And I knew I was learning loads about myself and how to manage people, situations, emotions, deal with a variety of things that were pushed into it sounds like, oh, it's just, lengths of wood on a shelf, but you've got a store team of like 120 people. Some of them are good eggs, some of them are bad eggs, some of them want to do different jobs and be promoted and you can support them. Some of them need managing out the business. You deal with shoplifters, you deal with stock takes, you deal with, people having medical emergencies in the store, like all sorts of stuff. It's quite a mature role, especially when I was like 20 and I was appointed as a 2021, being appointed as a trading manager. And it's like while you're the only one in the shop, you're responsible for what goes on in there. So a lot of that, and I knew it was good for me, but longer term, I was like, I don't want to be absent from a lot of life just for my job. I felt I'd kind of done my service in that aspect. So moving into this was as much of, everyone's got to earn money. Everyone's got bills to pay, but it was lifestyle driven as well. And I'm much happier in that aspect because I'm not a morning person. So you probably can't get me on a good run before 10 a.m. I try not to book anything in for clients before 10, half 10, because I need time to defrost when I wake up. I'm just not a morning person, How I functioned at getting up at 3:45 in the morning to go and open a store at 5 a.m. is beyond me, I was like a robot. And people are like, oh, it's all right, you'd be at home for 2 o'clock. I'd be asleep for 3:30. You know what I mean? It's like I'm wiped out. So yes, from a personal perspective, it's a much better life balance. I don't have to commute. I work from home. Yes, I have to go and see clients sometimes, but I can do the vast majority, in fact, all of my job remotely through the technology we have. Things like this where you can verify people's ID via Zoom calls and things like that. And so, yeah, definitely much, much better place. There's obviously times where you look and think, for Christ's sake, I'm self-employed. The buck stops with me. Sometimes you're expecting cash flow to come through and it just doesn't for whatever reason. And you've got to have the financial resilience and I suppose, the discipline to be able to manage yourself through that. But overall, yeah. And I can see where it's going. So longer term, you look and think, well, if this is where we're at after, 3 years, actually in another 3 years, where's it going to be? Where do we want it to be? And is it feasible? It's like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. So to go back to it though, I don't think I could have done this job much sooner,
Mm.
because you need that life experience. You need to go through all those different things. I do see some. I've seen a couple of like really young people enter the industry to do mortgages and IFA work, and I absolutely wish them the best. And I think they will be, they'll be really good because I've had a little bit of exposure to them. But you do wonder if those people are sat in front of certain clients, are they going to have the credibility or the actual just ability to talk to them in the right way, because they've not got that kind of years on them. They've not got the level of maturity in that aspect, that they've been around the block enough. So it's come at the right time, I suppose.
That's good. No, that's good. It's good to hear as well, because at the end of the day, it's this podcast is about property predominantly, but it's about entrepreneurship. It's about building businesses. It's about mindset and things. And a lot of people say to me, well, you've done well over the last few years and things. But I always say to myself, well, it took me 16 years to get this far, so to speak, in like a professional sort of corporate environment. But you can take the experience from your past jobs, from your past life, if you like, into your new life. And it does, like you say, that makes you stronger, makes you better, makes you better equipped to be able to handle the situations. And with anything, whether you're starting your own business and everybody thinks, oh, it's rosy, it's not. You still got problems, you still have bad days, you still have things that tick you off. But it's the way that you've matured, so to speak, that you can't really be relying on anybody else. You've got to sort it out yourself. And I think sometimes that's quite good. Pull your socks up and let's get on with it. And as long as you're doing something that you enjoy doing, then that helps massively. If you're doing something that you hate, which is probably why you weren't going for any promotions or anything like that, because you were never really truly enjoying what you were doing. You were just sort of going through the motions and getting it done. And of course, if you were loving it and bouncing around, then you'd have taken every opportunity that would have come your way. But, opportunity is everywhere. And you took the opportunity here, which is great. So that's phenomenal and fantastic. But what do you as a business offer?
So I think the first piece is we're not a volume-driven business. We don't aspire to have high street branch where there's loads of people come in and it's like a call center environment and there's like 30 people at desks all doing mortgages. I'm sure that's all great fun and for those people that want to operate a business like that. We offer a bespoke kind of one-to-one advice service, mainly centered around property finance and funding. We have some additional bits, insurance, for example, is a byproduct of mortgages. There's always a consideration that needs to be made when you take on additional debt to how exposed you are, and therefore we offer that element as well. We work with a gentleman who for the last 20 years has just done wills and trusts. So again, having all of your ducks in a row should something go wrong, because let's face it, as we've just seen with Lizzie, everyone's going to die at some point. There's got to be some sort of planning. Seeing all the stuff on social media saying, Charles has inherited £750 million worth of assets and he pays no tax and it's an outrage. No, that's called trust and estate planning. It's open to pretty much anybody. If you want to pay a couple of grand to get it in place, it's there. It's a bespoke service providing one-to-one support, I suppose, to get you to where you want to be. If that's a residential remortgage, just for peace of mind, so you know what's going on with your own home, brilliant. If it's, we just saw somebody yesterday afternoon who's got a portfolio, 6 properties as an HMO, multi-unit block and 4 single lets, all on standard variable rate. Wants to get them, I don't know how they're all on standard variable rate, talk about timing, wants to get them back onto a fixed rate product, maybe take a bit of money out of them. That's the sort of we're looking for, where people need that bespoke guidance. Whether it's residential, whether it's buy-to-let, whether it's full commercial, that's the space we're in. It's not a conveyor belt of clients. You've got maybe 20 to 30 on the go at varying stages. People at the start of their journey, people at the end waiting for the solicitors to get them to complete, and then people in the fun and games of underwriting. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It sounds really simple when I say it like that.
Yeah, it's easy, isn't it? It's easy. Anybody can do it now. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if property investors and people getting out there and people getting started into property and things, you will get your banks and you will get your estate agencies and things, and they will all have their own lenders. But at the end of the day, and this is one thing I've learned through John, is John has a market of lenders and potential products that he can use, which, you know, some banks won't have access to because you're an independent broker, aren't you? And I think you just sort of share and elaborate with us why being an independent broker really is a massive benefit to a property investor.
Yeah, so you're right in what you're saying. If you go to the bank only has the bank's products. They might have 12 different interest rates for 3 different types of lending, and that's it. And they've got their own, each bank has its own set of rules, criteria, people they'll lend to, things they're looking for. Your high street banks, at the minute, post-COVID, because of all your bounce back loans and things like that, they've done their lending for like the next 5 years, unless it's like really, really safe lending for them at a bit of a premium interest rate. They're not that interested. And actually, they're not particularly specialist lenders. So, you know, if you're in the HMO space, do you really want Santander, I'm just picking a random name, with their one-size-fits-all approach to HMOs, which might be, there's one high street lender, we do HMOs, but it could be no more than 4 bed. I mean, yeah, there's 4 bed HMOs out there, but it's not that helpful to people who want to do 6, 9, 12 beds HMOs and they dream of $3,000 a month cash flow, you know, 4 beds, like, you know, it's that sort of stuff. It's opening up the floodgates to a vast array of different lenders with different criteria, with different opportunities to make things work. And you can kind of link one lender up to another, you know, being whole of market. We can say, right, well, we'd use this bridging lender because actually it's below market value you purchase. We know they'll do 80-85% loan to value because they're very comfortable in that space, providing the numbers add up. And actually this other buy-to-let lender will allow you to then flip that out into a remortgage in just 3 months' time, as long as, again, they're happy with the numbers, allowing you to release the capital. You go to the bank and ask for that. First of all, they won't do bridging. Second of all, you've got to own it for 12 months. It's having access to all that sort of stuff. You know, it's what's known as whole of market. There is nobody that we can't use, even if they aren't already set up on our panel. The network that we're part of is really, really good. They're really receptive to writing business. And if there's a lender out there that they can verify and they're comfortable with, they'll allow us to do one-off deals with that lender to get something across the line for our client. Obviously, it's got to be the right thing for the client, and everything's got to check out from their aspect. But you know, there's absolutely nothing we don't have access to. So it's that's the bonus of using us. You're right in what you're saying in terms of estate agencies. So a lot of estate agents will have in-house brokers. Some of them are whole of market. Some of them are what's called on a closed panel, I think. So you maybe got 20 or 30 different lenders, and they're all big name lenders, and some of them are really useful. But are you really getting, you know, the best advice if you're just picking from 20 banks? Are you getting the best rate? Well, you can't be, because you're not comparing everybody. It might actually be the best rate, but until you've checked 100 odd people, you don't know that for sure. Same with insurance. They might have 2 insurers, but there's maybe 15 of them out there, all doing different things, all offering different things. And sometimes when it comes down to medical stuff, you know, if you've got a family history of females with a family history of breast cancer, for example, and the estate agents, insurers, just won't insure anybody whose parents have had, whose mum's had breast cancer, a female. But actually there are insurers out there that will. They might charge a slight premium for it, but you can't get access to that. How's that right? You should have access to the best, you know, available products to you. So that's the benefit of using us in that space.
And I think also in property, we always talk about a power team and having a power team, but it's also having a sounding board to be able to look at properties, to be able to look at potential deals, you know, conversions, whatever developments that you're looking at, but being able to have somebody like yourself at the end of the phone just to run sort of ideas past you before, you know, people really start to seriously commit. And also get those numbers straight, because it can be very easy to just assume that, oh, I spoke to John the other week and we were looking at this project and these were the rates for this, but now I'm looking at another project in the other part of town. It'll be the same rates, but it's having that sounding board to just go back and just say, John, will this be the facts? So that at least when you're putting your deals together, you put your numbers together, you're doing it with proper factual accounts, rather than just saying, well, that's what it was over there. it should be the same over here. And I think a lot of people can get a bit caught up in that. So, I mean, your ideal sort of clients are probably people that continue to work with you, are they, all the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite hard to quantify a number of clients that would be ideal, because some people might have a quiet year and some people might be like, no, I'm going hell for leather this year. I'm going to buy 10 properties. So you can't just say, well, I only need 50. Because if they're all having a quiet year, you haven't got a business for 12 months. But yeah, you're right. People that want to work with us on an ongoing basis, you know, I don't mind doing your residential stuff where it's one hit and, you know, we'll see you in 3 years, you in 5 years kind of thing. That's no problem. But, you know, your developers, your investors, they come back more often, more frequent. They tend to do some of the, you know, adventurous developments, you know, regenerating buildings and changing the use of them and all that sort of stuff. So they're great to work with from a personal level, as well as obviously, you know, like I say, we've got bills to pay, so you need to earn some money. But it's good helping people in that space. I guess the ideal element is people that are just on the same page as you and they live in the real world. You do sometimes see people, as soon as they've got one or two deals, they think that I am, you know, and it's like, well, I'm not happy with this. Why have we got to do that? And they just have to understand that ultimately the bank holds all the cards because the bank's got all the money. So if you want to get to a point where you're shouting the odds, you need to have all the money to do everything you want to do. If you're lending the bank's money, guess what? You're going by the bank's rules. Yeah, just people that live in the real world, I suppose. The people we have the best working relationships with are the ones that we speak with the most frequent. No shock there. But I think the relationship's two-way. They ask some questions, we give them some bits back. They go away and figure out what they need to do. They come back and ask again, rather than just, you know, I want to do this. We are going to do this. This must be this way. Because they're almost asking for something sometimes that doesn't exist. And therefore, you know, they might think as a broker, oh, it's you as a broker. You know, you can't do that. I'll get another broker that will. Well, we're all, pretty much every broker, if they hold a market, has access to the same thing everywhere, you know. So if I can't get it, it probably doesn't exist in that sense. So it's, you know, you're always going to get people that like to throw the toys out the pram, I suppose, in every walk of life, and trying to avoid them as best as you can, I guess, because it's just not conducive to a successful business relationship. It's the reality of it. With self-employed, we don't have to deal with people if they're not particularly great to deal with. You know, we never kind of look at anybody and prejudge them, but you know, after you've dealt with people a couple of times, you get a sense for who they actually are and how they behave. And sometimes you think when people show the true colours early on, you think that's a blessing in disguise, because they're a nightmare. You know, I would have loved to do the project and help them, but them as a person, they're just not right for us. So I want to deal with them on a long-term basis, you know.
Well, no, that's it. And it's right. Life's too short to be surrounded by people that you don't want to be surrounded by or working with or for or anything like that. So if we're looking at sort of financial products and things that are out there, obviously you have commercial mortgages, your residential mortgages, developer finance and things. But are there any sort of products out there that maybe aren't as commonly known that people can sort of help them with opportunities and deals that maybe just aren't, like I say, just aren't known by everybody out there?
So you're right in what you're saying. You've got your standard stuff. You've got your standard residential mortgages. You've then got your regulated buy-to-lets, which is where perhaps you might inherit a house and there's a family member living in it, but it's not yours, and you need to flip that into a regular standard buy-to-let, single-let stuff. You've got your HMOs and your specialist multi-unit blocks, so a house that's two completely self-contained flats, two separate entrances, usually two separate exits as well. And then you move up into your semi-commercial stuff, so a couple of shops, some flats above. Great way of diversifying a portfolio, I suppose, and mitigating some risk. And then you move into your full commercial, and then you're right again, your development finance, your auction finance, your bridging loans, heavy and light refurbishment. That's all your kind of standard stuff. It's not so much that there's any hidden products. I think it's just a way of getting one thing to work in line with the other. I spoke to a lady this morning who is wanting to bolster her pension prospects, And she's thinking about buying houses, renovating them and selling them. She did a little bit of that about 20 years ago. Still feels passionate about it. Doesn't want to do anything too crazy. She's happy taking one-bed flats in your Greater London area, spending a bit of money on them, selling them on. But her idea of it was to buy it on a mortgage, spend the money on it, and then sell it. And it's like kind of pulling that apart to people to say, well, if it's on a mortgage, you can have the early repayment charges unless you want your standard variable rate. Or, well, I don't want the variable rate. I want to know where I'm at. Right, well, that's a fixed rate mortgage. Generally, the shortest one you can get is 2 years. Oh, well, I don't want to hold the property for 2 years. I want it gone within 9 months. Right, well, you can have an early repayment charge, probably. I don't want an early repayment charge. Right, well, kind of, it sounds awful, you're kind of undoing someone's goals and ambitions and saying, well, have you thought about using a bridge? No, right, well, this is what it is, this is how it works. The only caveat to that is you kind of need to get off it within a certain time scale, otherwise it's going to roll over and you'll incur another set of charges, or potentially the bridging lender will say, look, we can't just keep rolling this over forever. You know, what are you doing, basically? What's going on? We need to draw a line in the sand at some point. And that's easier said than done when you're selling a property, because yes, stuff's on and off the market really quickly, but actually from my clients' perspectives currently, to get stuff completed can be up to 9 months. You know, it's a hell of a long process. And some people get really, really frustrated with that, but that is where the market's at, between underwriting and just the legal element of getting things completed. It can be up to 9 months. So it's piecing bits together for people in terms of the different products to say there's maybe a different route to market. However, these are the things you're going to come up against with that. Have you thought about that? And you mentioned about 10 minutes ago, you know, working with people who are a number of months away from doing a project as a kind of a sounding board to say, I want to do this, how does it fit? And that, you know, that's the kind of space that fits into, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I think with anything you need to plan, or you plan to fail at the end of the day if you don't put yourself out there and you don't ask the relevant questions to the professionals and take the advice that they're actually offering you. And like you say, you might have somebody out there wanting to call all the shots, wanting to be the big I am, that won't actually listen to the advice from the expert that's saying this is what the market is offering. You know, this is what we've got. This is the range of products. We need to now see which one fits your product, fits your project. And take it from there. And I think, yeah, I mean, some people are quite strange when it comes to that sort of thing, but I'm sure you've got some extra good tales about stuff like that. So, I mean, what would be sort of the 5 key points for clients using, you know, your financial services?
First one, I think we've already touched on in terms of just be real people with us. We're not robots. I can't magic products. We work with you. We're a strategic partner with you. If you're telling me you want to do one buy-to-let a year, great. If you're telling me you want to do, a 9-bed HMO within 12 months, great. We can tell you how to get there, but we're not the enemy, if that makes sense. I don't represent the bank. I represent you to the bank, and then kind of convey what the bank wants from you in order to make your goals happen. But yeah, with any broker, I think they'll all just appreciate you working with them, because obviously you talk to other brokers. I've worked with other brokers. Sometimes some of the clients, it's just comical, some of the stuff, you know, and you think, for God's sake, it's in our interest to get this done for you, but you've got to work with us. It's no good moaning, whinging, complaining, putting up blockers. I had somebody say to me earlier this week, I had asked for an accountant's reference, and his first response was, oh, but the accountant's going to be really busy. And I was just like, what sort of a response is that? Do you pay the accountant? Does he work for you? Yeah, then ask him. He'll put it in his queue and he'll do it. Oh, I don't want to do that. He's going to be really busy. What? Do you want to buy this property or not? Then you need to go and get the reference. It's just like, they make it so difficult. You know, work with us because we're here to help. We're a strategic partner. We want, yes, we get paid from it. Of course we do. But, hold your broker's hand in that sense. They're not working against you, although it might feel like that sometimes. I think I've got, do you know what? Have I got a list of a couple of bits? So, next one, be realistic with obstacles. And we try to kind of signpost this at the start of be realistic with them, to say, like, isn't there a thing online where it's like you can have, there's cheap, good, and fast. You can have any 2 of them, but you can't have all 3. So if it's cheap and fast, it's not going to be good. it's that kind of thing. You can have any two of those, but the third one's always going to be nipped down. Then you have to kind of say that to people, to say, look, if you are absolutely rate driven, because some people are fanatical about, I will not pay above a certain rate. I'm not doing it. I'm just not paying it. Well, if it doesn't exist, I can't get you it. But if you want the lowest rate, guess what? A lot of other people do as well. And therefore the service levels from the lender, they're probably going to suffer, because some of them currently, I've got a decent sized case in with the bank at the minute. Their service levels are on 25 days to assess documents. So if the bank comes to me and says, "Oh, can you get me a copy of Mark's latest accounts, please? We just need to verify something." You send me that a day later. I send that to them. 25 days is the time scale that they've basically said that's what we're working to assess them. Now you can try and jump the queue a little bit, but you can't do it all the time, because we're not that underwriter's only client. It's signposting, that sort of stuff for people. You can sometimes say to them, you can pay a little bit more on rates, but this lender's service levels are like 2 days, guaranteed. Valuation will be instructed by the end of this week, as long as you haven't been telling us porkies. Obviously we'll have been through all the documents and verified stuff. As long as there's nothing in there that you're going to just surprise me with, which again does crop up. People, I didn't tell you I've got another job. Oh, I've actually handed me notice in since we started the application. It's like, so signposting things with people, beware of the obstacles. The broker in theory should tell you what sort of things you're likely to come up against in terms of underwriting isn't fun for commercial mortgages. Residential mortgages is a walk in the park in comparison. But if you're self-employed, be prepared to have requests for your accounts, your tax calculations, your overviews, accountants' references if they want to double check. It can't just be any Tom, Dick and Harry accountant. It's got to be from a certain set list of qualifications for a lot of lenders before they'll verify them. Yeah, they might do a really good job of pulling together your accounts for HMRC, but if they haven't got the specific qualification the lender wants, they won't accept their assessment of you. That sort of stuff, so be prepared for the obstacles. Anything worth having in life, as you probably know, you work in property, generally you've got to work for it a little bit. Some more strenuous than others. Some of the easy ones, you think they're an absolute nightmare, and some of the big things, by fluke sometimes, they just whiz through and you think, crikey, I'm waiting for that to come back and bite us, but it never does, because it's a weird industry. So yeah, that's probably a next one. And I think to go with that, I suppose if we're asking for something, it's because the lender wants it. We're not asking for the fun. Trust me, it's not fun looking through people's bank statements, for example, but we're trained to look for certain things. We're not trained to go through and think, oh, crikey, they spend £8 a day at Starbucks. What are they buying? I wonder what they drink. Brokers really don't care. It's not that interesting looking through people's bank statements. We're checking what your direct debits are. We're checking if there's any wild transactions in there that the lender's going to go, is that fraud? Is that something naughty? That kind of thing. So if we're asking for it, it's because the lender wants it. I've already mentioned the lender ultimately holds all the cards and the money. So, we have to bear that in mind. We have to jump through their hoops. And then I suppose if you're looking to work with somebody longer term, again, I already mentioned, we can spot the pain in backside clients, pretty quick. The company would say, I've been using another broker, but they're not very... And you think, well, you've been on the phone 2 minutes to me, I don't know you, and you're already slacking off the other broker. Like, do I really want to take this one on? Like, there might be a genuine reason as to why they think the broker's not very good. But yeah, we know if you're paying the backside, if you want to be in this industry, I suppose in the property industry for a long time, you're going to need to forge good relationships with people. Everybody can't be bad. You can't just jump broker to broker, because you're going to come full circle and end up with nowhere to go. So just bear that in mind. I guess you've got to make friends with people, I suppose.
Well, yeah. And I mean, from your perspective, obviously, it's still quite relatively new to you. You're a few years into it all now, obviously, with your experiences and everything. And like you say, it feels like it's been eternity with everything that we've had to do since we all started our businesses, 2019 onwards. We've been hit by everything, but we're still here and we're still smiling. So from your perspective, where are you looking to take this business in the future?
So my dad came out of retirement to help me with this business. He'd been retired about a year and a half, struggling with it because he can't do nothing. You'll not catch him now, even though it's overcast and rainy here in the northeast today. He'll not be sat on the sofa watching Lorraine Kelly or whoever's on daytime TV. Absolutely not. He needs to be busy, and he's supporting us for something to do because he enjoys it. Obviously, I'm his son, and I'm sure that comes into it. But longer term, we need to phase that back a little bit. You know, I want a day and a half a week, so it's giving him something to do, keeping him busy, but it's not dominating his kind of life.
Yeah.
He's 61. You know, was able to retire at 55. Spent a lot of my youth away working. He would go to Milton Keynes every Sunday night for a meeting on a Monday, come back on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, be up and down the country, that kind of thing. So he's kind of done his sentence in the world of having to be places. So we need to phase that back a little bit, definitely. So that probably looks like bringing somebody in to do some admin support, I suppose. At which point you look and think, well, you kind of need somewhere for them to sit, probably. So that looks like taking on an office. The conundrum with that is, who pays for the office? Does it come out your profit, or do you charge your clients more? Well, we're not really in the space of charging clients eye-watering sums. I do speak to some people who are like, oh yeah, I used to deal with a broker. Or my mate's dad actually dealt with a broker previously who charged a percentage of the overall loan. His broker fee was like 2,400 quid. You think that's wonderful? I'd love to do 2,400 quid, but I can't justify it for a residential remortgage. It's not right, you know. So it's fitting all of that sort of stuff in. I think certainly continuing to build a really good group of like-minded, nice to deal with clients in property development space is absolutely key, through the utilization of PIN and the referrals that kind of spins off. Yes, taking on new clients. Yes, dealing with your residential stuff. But the majority of our business comes from referrals, probably 90%. It's very, very rare that I get random stuff. I get talking to somebody randomly who's like, oh, actually, you know, you could help me. And I suppose that helps to build the group of good clients, because you're not just getting random people who think, oh, I'll try them, you know. They come to you because they've been told you're half decent or you can do what they need.
Yeah.
So yeah, continue to build a client base, probably taking somebody in an admin space so I can pull my dad back a little bit, potentially with an office, but we don't, I think I mentioned right at the start, I don't want it to be, you know, some high street conveyor belt of financial services where it's just based on volume, and as soon as you've had the advice, you passed on to an administrator and you never speak to the advisor again. It just doesn't sit right, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. But it's good. It's good to have that vision. It's also good that you've got a bigger why than you. You're doing it for your dad as well to help him. And I've met your dad. He's a fantastic guy. But I can imagine that he doesn't like to sit still. He likes to keep busy. And we all do. I mean, I used to, when I did a corporate job, think, oh, it'd be nice when you retire, but I'll never retire now, because what's the point? If you do something you enjoy, there's no point in retiring,
Yeah,
because that's when
that's
problems happen. You've got to stay active.
Yeah, you do. You see a lot of that with like police officers and things, don't you? They do their whatever it is, 25, 30 years, they retire, they think great, and then all the health problems kick in.
Yeah.
And you know, some of them die early, heart attacks, and you know, and different things come on, and it's because they've been used to performing at a certain level and having to push themselves, you know, on this shift this week, on this shift next week, got to do this, got to do that. The body just goes, oh, you know, and they kind of
Yeah.
lose the drive, and it does have an effect on people. You're absolutely right. I'm sure there'll come a day where all of us, all we can do is sit in a chair, you know. Hopefully when you're in your late 80s, 90s, if you make it that far, all you can do is sit in a chair and watch the world go by. But while you've got the choice, well, why would you want to do that? So yeah, it's good, like you say, to be able to that sounds awful, give him something to do, but allow him to have that stimulation, because he's not motivated by the financial side of it, you know.
Yeah.
His share goes back into the big pot to keep the business running. It's purely because he enjoys it, and he does like getting out there and meeting people. We meet some brilliant clients, some people that you end up really liking, not just from a client perspective, but they're actually they're really good people, you know. And you kind of get bought into, you really buy into what they're doing and what they're trying to do, especially through seeing them come through COVID and then try to recover their businesses as well as build a property empire. You know, you can really empathize with them, because you look and think, well, from a financial services perspective, I don't have any stock. I don't have any customers that kind of need to come in a shop. You know, I don't need anything other than a laptop, a phone, a notepad, and a printer, really.
Yeah.
And some of these guys have got, you know, got people with like transport businesses with coaches and stuff like that run holidays, and you think like, they've spent, it's a family business they've had for 40 years to go through COVID and nearly lose it all through no fault of their own. And then to be able to help them kind of come through the other side of that and then start to build a property empire, you really start to kind of forge good relationships with people. So it's a great industry to work in.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So I would also like to say to people as well that just because, John's based up in the Northeast, it doesn't matter. He can still help you whether you're based in London, down south, wherever, because obviously the market isn't just based in Newcastle or in the Northeast or anything like that. It's across the whole country. And I know a lot of people are like, I want a local broker. And you were talking about having a shop front and things like that, but it really doesn't make any odds. If your best broker you can find is based 100, 200, 300 miles away from you, what does it matter when you can talk on Zoom, you've got the telephone, you can do everything online and stuff like that now. So the market is a lot more open, obviously, than it probably was when your dad started, which, we didn't have all the technology then. So that's why they've had to do a lot more traveling and rely mainly on more people in his area, I guess.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the Zoom sort of stuff was really, it was around, but it was born through COVID, wasn't it? I'd never used Zoom. I'd used Skype, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff years ago. But you didn't just say, oh, we'll just jump on a Zoom call, or Teams or whatever system. So you're right. Geography doesn't matter. I've got some of my best clients I've never physically met. They're up and down the country, but they WhatsApp me with stuff, they ring me with stuff, and you might not have spoken to them for a couple of months, but you just pick up where you've left off. So yeah, the beauty of technology means we can just do everything remote as long as we verify who you are, and all that stacks up. We need to do our compliance stuff from our end to make sure we're operating in a safe environment and not enabling anything naughty. As long as all that stacks up, there's absolutely nothing stopping us doing everything remote. It works really, really well.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's why I just wanted to make that point. So this is the time where I like to do a quick fire round and ask you a few questions, which are a bit unusual and everything, to say the least. But I'm always interested, and it
have a drink first.
Yeah. Help yourself. So while you're ripping that one down, if you could sit around a table and have dinner with three people, alive or dead, who would you like to have dinner with?
Oh, that's a beauty! Isn't this like a proper podcast question? This isn't it?
Well, it's a proper podcast. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah, that's it. I think it's like a proper. I mean, I watch some of this sort of stuff on. I've seen a couple of your bits. I watch, like is it Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, that sort of stuff. That's like I didn't think I'd get anything as good as that.
I'm always interested.
You probably never heard of him. Randy Rhoads would be the first one. So he was the he died a number of years ago. He was the lead guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne's solo musical career. So I'm a massive Black Sabbath fan, massive Ozzy Osbourne fan. Grew up watching the Osbournes. I don't know if you ever saw the TV series.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, he's just wild. I like that sort of music. So yeah, my dog's named Ozzy. But the guitarist Randy Rhoads wrote some of the best and most complex musical songs, that sort of stuff. Died before I was even born. So yeah, but to speak to him and understand a little bit about that will be fantastic. I'd like to think Churchill will be good. Got quite a, I don't know whether that's coming on the back of what's going on with the Queen, but bit of a sense of kind of national pride in that sense. That mindset and mentality of like we will just make it happen. We will overcome whatever's in front of us. Will be really interesting. A third one's very difficult. There's a lot of people that I like. There's a lot of people that I'm interested in. Maybe Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's a very complex character, isn't he?
Yeah.
He probably thinks he isn't, but when you see him, it's like wow. Or Billy Connolly again. People that are they're bigger than life, aren't they, I suppose? And they flip between being the people you see in the media and the people they really are. And it's kind of hard to tell where the lines are blurred and where they're not. So, yeah. People that bring a bit of colour and a bit of excitement, I suppose, yeah.
Nice. Like that. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, I don't know if I was ever given this, but somehow I knew it, and it was when I worked in retail. And if it's not yes, it's no. So if somebody asks you for something, if you can't say yes almost straight away, there's obviously something holding you back. You might wait a minute and be like, yeah, but if you've had to hesitate, there's something in there making you hesitate. So when you think about, oh, I like to do this, and instantly like, yes, there's something in you kind of jumping at, yeah, that sounds brilliant. I know straight away. But if it takes me a little while to get the yes, you got to look, actually, why is it taking me a little while? What is it that's playing on my mind with that? Or if it's a straight no, obviously it's a no. So yeah, if you want something, you kind of know straight away. It probably comes down to just kind of gut feeling and instinct.
Cool. I like that. And
Don't know
what's
where I
your
got
top?
that from.
I don't know, but it's a good one. I do like it. And it's something to, like you say, live by. Basically, if there's something in you telling you not to go for it, then yeah, that's worth looking at.
Yeah, like when you said to me, "Do you want to come on a podcast?" I was like, "Yeah." Straight away, I was like, "Yeah." I didn't have to go, "Yeah, all right then." I didn't need persuading, if that makes sense. It was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll do that." Yeah, because it was straight away. It was appealing in that sense, So you might, now I've said it to you, you might have those moments where somebody says something and you go, "Yeah, all right then," but you come away after thinking, "Why did I hesitate with that? What is it I don't like about this?"
Yeah,
So
makes you think, doesn't it? And it's like you've come onto a podcast with like proper podcast questions.
yeah, real podcast questions are like, wow, that's a good one.
So, have you got a top 3 books? Are you a reader?
No, not really. I'm not a reader. I like to read stuff on holiday, kind of, biographies and things like that. But I'm not a reader. It comes back to the sense of I've always had a really low regard for bits of paper and education, if that makes sense. It just never sat well with me. I knew it, the classic thing of like, why do they teach you algebra at school? All adults are like, I've never used it. I had that thought at school. I was already sitting thinking, the hell do I need it? Why? And
Yeah.
it just never. There was a couple of subjects that I really enjoyed, but the vast majority of it was just like, wow, I don't get why I'm here. I don't know, other than social interaction, don't really know what I learned, and that kind of transpired into adult life, where I'm sure there's some wonderful books out there, and I did read one. I took a big job up in Wallsend when I worked in retail, and the manager gave me a book called Sumo, Shut Up, Move On. Really interesting book. There's things in it like wearing victim t-shirts. Take off your victim t-shirt.
Yeah.
Stop being a victim. Why it's not productive. It doesn't help anything. Take it off. Ditch Doris Day. What will be will be. No, it'll be what you make it. There's an element of luck, but it'll be what you make of it. If you put more into it, you probably get more out of it, unless you're really unlucky, which does happen from time to time. So Sumo, Shut Up, Move On was quite a good book. It's only a short book, which is probably good for my attention span in that sense. But I'm not a reader, no, so it's biographies, people that interest me. Funny stuff in that sense, because it tends to be when I'm on holiday where I would stop and read. I think now everything's consumed via image, isn't it?
Yeah.
YouTube, for example, like this. I don't watch the TV. I only watch the TV to watch the football, but I do watch bits and pieces on YouTube that I maybe, Vice News might have a 20-minute special on North Korea. You might think, oh, I watched that, but after that, I don't want to then go and watch like documentaries and films and read books on it. I'm not that way inclined, So
Fair enough. And do you listen to any other podcasts? Got top 3 podcasts?
not listen. I have to watch them, if that makes sense. So again, comes to the YouTube bit. I have seen bits of your Stephen Bartlett stuff, your Diary of a CEO. Some of that stuff does interest me. Not all of it. Sometimes it's just, I think they had one of the guys from One Direction on it. It's like, I don't care, not that. But there's always a few where you think, oh, I'd really like to hear from that person. That's a really good. You just know when something's going to be meaty and you want to hear. Some of the football ones, quite like hearing all the tales of that. So like, I don't know if are you into football at all, Mark?
I like football, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know Ben Foster is goalkeeper?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he does the Fozcast, I think. He's just retired, but he gets a lot of obviously former players and coaches and things like that on, and talks about the inner workings of a football club and how all those things kind of go on. And it, you know, it does drum home to you that they're just normal people. They're just half decent at kicking the ball around. But it's interesting to hear, you know, what happens when you get signed. He was talking on one about medicals. You know, players go and have a medical to do a transfer, and he's like, it's basically just an insurance policy. If they're signing you on a 1-year contract on a free, they just want to check that your heart's beating, basically, and you bend your knees because the risks to them financially is really low. But if they sign you for 40 million quid on a 5-year deal on 100 grand a week, you're a real investment. And therefore, you know, that's when they've got you under all the machines reading what's going on, and they've got you on the treadmill, you know, checking your oxygen levels while you're running and stuff like that. So just interesting to hear that sort of thing. And then probably the other one is I'm a big carp angler, so I go carp fishing. And a lot of the fishing industry over the last maybe 3 or 4 years, the media side of it's gone crazy through like Instagram, but then onto YouTube with whether it's you know, properly edited videos of people going away for a week or two to some random far-flung part of Europe to fish an unknown lake kind of thing, or a podcast that goes with it and people talking about various things. There's a big company, one of the biggest tackle makers. They make like little hooks and just random things called Corda, and the gentleman that owns it is he's obviously a very keen fisherman, but he's been through a lot of stuff himself in the last few years. So he's been through cancer, and he's really open and honest about that. And he's on the podcast and he's like lifts his top up and he's all hooked up because they're taking his lymph nodes out and stuff like that. And it becomes less about the fishing element, more about the personal story and the understanding of that. I guess because I can resonate with him because he's into angling and I know who he is, that you kind of listen to it. But yeah, you said right at the start, you like to hear people's stories. I'm very much the same. I don't think I'm particularly interested, and I'm not that bothered about other people knowing who I am or anything about me, really. I'm quite a closed book in that aspect. But I like to hear other people's stories. It's a lot of people have been through a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear, hopefully, they come out the other side and how they got to that point, you know. So I do find that sort of stuff interesting.
Well, I think we learn from it as well. You know, other people's experiences is what you learn the most from. It is people's experiences or your own experiences. You learn more from, you know, your failures than you will your wins, as the old saying goes. But it's still learning from your wins as well. You know, if you're reviewing what you've done, you're reviewing what other people have done. Then, you know, it might not be exactly the same scenario, but you'll have a better idea or an understanding of things, and it just helps your growth, I think. And as long as you're sort of growing as a person, you know, when we're born, we grow, and if you stop growing, then that's probably when you've got a problem. But if you can keep growing and keep learning new things and what interests you, stay with that, then that's brilliant. But no, it's good because there were some good answers there, a really, really different take on things, which is really, really good. You should read some more, though, my friend. There's some phenomenal books out there that might help you, but each to their own. Watch them on videos or listen to them on audio, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to. So if the listeners want to read, go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, you know, if I had to commute every day, then obviously you can have the audio podcasts on in the car, can't you? So if I had an hour's drive every day, absolutely. That's probably the little bit I'm missing in terms of listening to some of the books and stuff like that. Because, sitting with them in your hand, that's a holiday thing for me. But I listen to something in the car, because I can drive forever. Like if you said to me, there's a full tank of fuel, nip down and grab me something, great, no problem. So I probably could tick off quite a bit of that sort of stuff.
Fair play. Well, yeah, it is two birds with one stone, so to speak. So if the listeners want to reach out to you, find out some more, obviously we'll put some links in the show notes as well. But what's the best way to get hold of your good self?
I don't mind anyway. People obviously have their own styles that they're kind of comfortable with. And some people like a formal phone call, and it's like it must be a certain time and all that sort of stuff. And other people just WhatsApp, text, LinkedIn, email. Again, we can pop all that sort of stuff in the bits and pieces underneath this. Any way that suits people. Like I say, I have some people that they only want to deal with you over the phone. I have some people that want everything written down, so it's gospel and they can hold you to it via email, and you've said and it's set in stone forever, you know. So whatever works for you, I'm easy, you know. I think as I always say to people, if I miss you, I'll come back to you, because sod's law, the phone doesn't ring. And then I'm on the phone to somebody and I miss 3 calls from different things throughout the day. That always happens to me. So
Yeah, it's always the way. It's always the way. Well, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on, John. I appreciate your time and I appreciate what you've shared with us today. And I hope the listeners and people watching this as well will have taken great value from it and also, opened your eyes up to a few of the opportunities and possibilities that are out there for us all to be able to enjoy. So again, like I say, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always a joy, and maybe we'll do a future episode and have a catch up and see how the market's changed and going into 2023 and onwards and stuff like that. If that's all right with you.
Yeah, sounds good. Hopefully, we've got inflation and Bank of England base rates on the decline, so we can come back with some wonderful news about how cheap money is to lend and all that sort of stuff. So fingers crossed we can come back with a positive message in that space.
Well, I think at the end of the day, whatever it is, we can. There's always solutions and there's always ways to get around things, isn't there?
Definitely, yeah. So always a route to market.
That's it. Brilliant. So thank you very much for joining me today and joining John as well. And remember to keep focusing on your vision, keep focusing on your goals, pushing yourself forward. And I look forward to you joining me in the next episode. Take care and bye for now.